you're thinking about buying a new home, or if you're even thinking about touring a new home, there's something that you're going to absolutely need first, and I'm going to cover that with you in this video. I'm also going to go over new construction, what's available, the incentives, the process if you're not familiar, and even if you're somebody that's maybe not considering new construction, it is good to know what the offer is so you can compare and contrast to the resale market. And when you go to resell your own home, that'll also help you to better understand the competition. Let's dig in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Living in Oregon. I am your host, Seth Marchant, licensed broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. On this channel, we talk about what it's like to live in Oregon and Southwest Washington. So if you want to see more of what that's like, make sure and hit the subscribe button. Today, we're going to talk about a buyer's agent's agreements. This is something that's brand new, beginning August 17th of this year. So as I'm recording this, about a week ago. Working with a buyer will be required to enter into a written agreement with the buyer prior to touring a home, including both in-person and live virtual tours, which we do quite a bit of. We work with a lot of buyers relocating from outside of the state, hence the name, the Oregon Relocation Team. So we've done quite a bit of Zoom tours, if you will. I'll include a link for this article in the description of this video if you want to read more about it. I'm going to run you through what these new buyer agent agreements look like that are required before you would actually even tour a home. This is going to be the most common one. We have a couple of different forms that we use in the state of Oregon. Washington has their own separate forms. So there's potentially at least 3 different forms that you might encounter. This is going to be probably most likely the most common one. So just let me take you through this really quickly. First, the parties both listed there. Representation of sellers and other buyers. We do have a initial agency disclosure pamphlet that we can provide to you, that we're supposed to provide to you upon our initial contact, that will help you better understand what our duties are to you. Terms, we have a place for a term which is typically 6 months to 12 months, but they can really be any term that you want. They can be as short as a day. We've done that, and there's others that are offering that too, mainly Zillow. I'll get onto that into just a moment, but compensation, this is going to be the most important part. This is sort of the meat of the agreement. As it stands right now, myself and Paul, the other person from this channel, we are kind of sticking to sort of the traditional percentage of a purchase price. You might start to see some fees out there. This new change has prompted some sellers to potentially not offer any compensation to the buyer's agent, in which that has prompted some buyers to start charging fees, or buyer's agents rather, to start charging some fees to their buyers. And I should say this is all very dynamic too. Everybody's kind of working through this. This is all very new. And the thing about this lawsuit, I've heard a lot of people say that they were maybe excited about some of the changes coming with the lawsuit. I should remind you, this lawsuit was designed simply to remedy a complaint from home sellers that complained that they didn't know that they could potentially offer, or they could negotiate what the commission was offered to their agent, the listing agent, as well as the buyer's agent. And this lawsuit was just a remedy for that complaint. This wasn't designed to create a better system for people. So unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit clunky going forward, and we're going to have to work through some of the kinks as we go along. And you're probably going to see some variations of some of these things. But as it stands right now, for Paul and I, going to be pretty straightforward, a standard percentage of the purchase price. Do you have a place down here for a non-refundable fee? Some people are thinking of that sort of as like a retainer. Early termination, this is important to know about this agreement. For the most part, when Paul and I, the other person from this channel, when we work with buyers, that relationship is always mutual. We're never going to try and hold a buyer into working with us that doesn't want to work with us. And if there's ever a buyer that we don't feel like is a good fit, then we will also cut ties. So as you can see in this agreement here, representation cannot be terminated before the end of the term the buyer's already into. If the buyer has not done so, the buyer's agent may terminate the representation agreement early by giving the buyer 3 business days. Buyer may terminate it early by giving the buyer's agent 3 business days. So essentially either party can give each other notice in writing, and terminate within 3 business days. Property can list property type, location, price range, terms. You don't have to fill out all of these, but typically the more you fill out, the better. Buyer's agent's obligations, disclosures and acknowledgments, confidentiality, how compensation is paid, dispute resolution. If you do come to a dispute, there is a party that offers arbitration. I don't think anybody watching this video is going to want me to go through every single line. So if you do want to see one of these agreements, you can email us info@OregonRelo, short for relocation, team.com. Again, that's OregonReloTeam.com. Put in the subject line that you'd like a copy of a buyer's agent agreement, and we'll send you one. Now, the big question that's prompted by all this is, if I'm a buyer, am I going to have to pay this whatever percentage or this fee when traditionally the seller has dictated the fee for the buyer's agent commission and paid that out at escrow with funds from the buyer? So in other words, the seller would say, hey, I'm selling my house. I'm going to offer a commission of, say, 2.5% to the buyer's agent, and that commission is paid out at escrow to the buyer's agent. And in some cases, like I mentioned, a seller may not want to offer a commission, in which that's going to be like a closing cost for the buyer. So the stage is set for the buyer to potentially have to pay a buyer's agent. Now, from what we've seen so far, again, it's just been about a week or so, although some people have implemented this before August 17th. So we've seen a little bit beyond a week, but what we've seen so far, just transactionally, is that not much has changed. We do require a couple additional forms now with our contracts, but overall, the commission percentage is staying the same, and the sellers, for the most part, from everything that we've seen, are still offering that percentage. So for you as a buyer wondering what things are going to look like on your end, not much is changing so far, other than we're going to, like I said, there's going to be a little additional paperwork. Now, there are going to be a few other ways that you potentially might encounter or approach this. So for example, these big websites like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, this is actually not great for their business. And the reason being is because when you go to Zillow and just click any home, we'll take this one right here in Wilsonville. If you click this button, which so many people do, request a tour or contact agent, you would think that that is going to the listing agent, which appears as a Jamie Beltran from our favorite eXp Realty. You would think that you're getting to that agent, but in fact, Zillow is selling your information to another agent, a buyer's agent that has paid specifically for this zip code right here. And so when you click contact information, or contact agent rather, you put your information in here, that's going to go to somebody else other than the listing agent, and that person is going to try and represent themselves as your buyer's agent. Now, when they do so and they contact you to schedule a tour for this listing, they're now going to need a buyer's agent agreement. So where this sort of gets awkward is you're getting a phone call from somebody that you maybe didn't even expect to get a phone call from. You don't even know who this person is, and now this person wants you to sign a contract. So that's very awkward. It doesn't feel right to a lot of people, catches a lot of people off guard. So Zillow is offering essentially 7-day contracts. Again, we can put in, when we write these, I can put in any date that I want. With this term right here, line number 10, we can just make it for 1 day. You know, if the purpose of the agreement is simply to tour a house and you're maybe not yet sure if you want to work with that person. Now, most people that reach out to us on our channel, of course, are very familiar with us. You know, they express that they feel like they know us very well. So most of the people that are reaching out to us already sort of know us and want to work with us. A little bit different than getting a call out of the blue from a random person, you know, a face you've never seen before, a name you don't recognize, which is what you get when you do one of these agreements on Zillow. So just know going forward, there's going to be a lot of different changes, and these platforms are going to be forced to adjust with these things because that's how they make money. If you didn't know, that's how Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, all these websites, they make money by selling your information to somebody that clicks this button right here, this request tour or this contact button. They sell it to somebody, a realtor, that pays for the zip code. So I think the takeaway for you is this all might sound kind of scary, but at least when working with Paul and I, We're going to have a lot of flexibility with these contracts. Like I said, we're not charging fees, at least not at this point. If you watch my video on this topic about 6 months ago, I covered this before all of this was rolled out. Kind of went on the record saying, I really don't want to work for a fee. I feel like it's much better when interests are aligned and I get paid when the goal is accomplished. Hate to have to see buyers paying fees to realtors when they haven't even closed on a house, especially in times during like 2020 and 2021 when there was buyers out there that were writing 10, 20 offers before getting accepted. Or in some cases, people wrote 20 offers and never got accepted. Imagine having to pay a realtor a fee to write offers over and over again and just continuously getting rejected like so many people did during the pandemic. You could spend thousands of dollars in realtor fees and never actually buy a house. So I prefer to keep it to a percentage of the sale for that reason, but if you're watching this video sometime later on down the road, a year down the road, who knows how things will actually turn out. Definitely get in touch with us to find out exactly where we're at with this, especially if this video is a little bit older when you're seeing this. Okay, now let's jump into the new construction. Let me tell you a little bit more about new construction. I'm going to go over some of the reasons why and some of the incentives and like I mentioned, the process. I want to take a look right here. $400,000 to $900,000 range in the Portland metropolitan area makes up the bulk of our transactions, and I just kind of like to see what other people are seeing when they're online searching. If you search Portland, Oregon for that price range for homes built in 2024 for new construction, it gives me 110 results. But if I remove that boundary, which will also take us into Vancouver and get all of the suburbs, most of the suburbs for the most part, that takes us over to 1,000 results. So you can see a lot of the new builds are not going to be directly in like Portland proper in Multnomah County. They're going to be more out in the suburbs, Washington County, Clackamas County. A lot of new construction in Vancouver, especially up north once you get towards this area in Ridgefield and Battleground. So why would somebody consider new construction? Well, I think why somebody might not consider new construction, I think to start with might be a little bit more obvious. If you're online searching for homes, people are typically searching by a price range, number of baths and bedrooms, and then typically the home size and then sometimes the lot size. And when you do a search like that, if we take out the filter for homes built in 2024, typically you're going to find some new construction that comes up, and that new construction is typically going to be at the top of your price range, and it's also going to fall at the bottom of your square footage range. In other words, new construction, your dollar doesn't go as far as a resale. So I think for most people searching for a home, especially first-time home buyers that aren't very familiar with the market, the instinct is more to lean towards a resale because you get more for your dollar. But there are a lot of reasons to go with new construction. So let me just run you through. I've got a list of maybe a couple dozen different reasons, but let me kind of highlight some of the big reasons. I think one of the biggest reasons is going to be maintenance. Especially if you're a first-time home buyer, it's really hard to know, of course, what things cost. How much does a new roof cost? How much does siding cost? How much does it cost to paint your house on the exterior? How much does the interior cost? How much does a new furnace cost? Most people don't know these answers. Most people that own homes don't know these answers. So it's really hard for a lot of people to calculate maintenance. But without doing so, you can assume that your maintenance on any kind of resale, and the older the house is, the more maintenance it's probably going to need, is going to be dramatically higher than a new construction home. In Oregon, your roof, your siding typically last 20 to 30 years, depending on the roof and siding materials and how well it's been taken care of. New roof and new siding costs tens of thousands of dollars. So when you buy a new home, a lot of your big costs, you're really not going to expect at least for a couple of decades. And along with that comes a warranty. Most builders are going to offer what's called a 10-to-1. 1 year on craftsmanship, so kind of anything that's not supposed to break on the house in the first year. Think of it as like a porch to porch, covers kind of everything that's not supposed to break in the first year. including craftsmanship on things like grout after the first year. They'll come up and touch up your grout that inevitably will crack after the first year. The second year, the next 2 years is going to be all of your major systems that make the house work, the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, all of that stuff. And then 10 years, sometimes 5 to 10 years would be structural. Anything major structural is going to be covered under the warranty. And of course, modern stuff, modern appliances, modern technology, pre-wired for connectivity. And then this is probably a big one for other people, healthier. One thing that a lot of people relocating to Oregon might not be familiar with, because a lot of people are coming from hotter places, drier places, California, Arizona, Nevada, not as familiar with the moisture and mold caused by the moisture. New homes are going to be a lot less susceptible and have much higher safety standards than an older house will have. Here's one of the biggest ones. Here's one of the biggest ones right here. Maybe, for some people, I would say the biggest thing, less competition. And if you're buying a house, and I'll get to this in a moment, the process, if you're buying at the very beginning, like a dirt build, like they haven't even broke dirt yet, you're going to go through the entire build. There's almost no competition when you're buying a house and building from the dirt up. So you can avoid bidding wars, which we're still continuing to see. And at this point, late in 2024, where we heard all of that talk about crashes in 2021, 2022, when is the crash coming? If you've watched my videos over the years, I've gone on record predicting that we're not going to see a housing crash or really even a correction. And so I do predict that it's going to continue to be competitive for buyers in the coming years. New construction is just less competitive. So if you've lost out on bidding wars and you're tired of dealing with going up against other buyers, you won't have to expect that with new construction. And the lower maintenance ties in with long-term investment and lower risk of immediate depreciation. If you buy a house that was mid-century and you keep it for 5 or 10 years or 20 years, there's probably something major that you're probably going to have to do to the house. With a new build, there's a chance that you might really not have to do anything. So that leads to fewer surprises, flexible move-in dates too. This kind of ties into less competition. Move-in dates can be tricky with resales, especially when the resale market has been so tough for contingent deals, meaning a lot of people have to sell their house before they can buy first, but not a lot of sellers want to accept a contingent offer. So what people end up doing is they list their house for sale, they just take a chance, they get a buyer, and then they ask that buyer, hey, can I rent my house back from you for 30 or 60 days and give themselves a very small time frame to go out and house shop and just hope that they don't end up homeless, which we saw a lot in 2020, 21, and 2022. And then finally, incentives, which I'm going to get to here next. Pretty much all new builders are going to have some sort of incentive right now, whether it's a lower interest rate that they're offering, covering closing costs, or some sort of upgrades or some sort of something that they're offering to do to the home. A lot of homes in Oregon, this is kind of changing, but sort of historically, a lot of homes wouldn't come with air conditioning, which is right now as it stands somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe about $8,000 for like an average new build. And oftentimes we can negotiate at least something like that into the deal, even if the builder isn't offering any incentives. So some of the bigger builders I'll run through real quick. Holt Homes. This is one you're probably going to see quite a bit, I'm guessing, and they haven't been offering too many incentives for both interest rates or closing costs. So with Holt Homes, those are going to be some of the people that we'd probably be looking at negotiating more towards like AC upgrade or other in-home upgrades. David Weekley Homes, we've seen rates at 5 to 6% recently. Closing costs, we've seen up to $5,000. And David Weekley has a couple or at least one preferred lender that they use. Pulte Homes, they have their own in-house lending, so 5.25% is the best I've seen. And they also offer up to $7,500 in closing costs. And again, these are just recent numbers that I've found online. I've actually seen some better numbers than that as far as transactions over the past year or so. So this is just the advertised stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best that they can do. Richmond American Homes, seen rates as low as 5.3% and $10,000 towards closing costs. Lennar, 4.99% and $10,000 towards closing costs. Same thing for D.R. Horton. Taylor Morrison, I actually found this. This wasn't advertised. This wasn't advertised online. I found this in an email that I had from them. 4.49%. I would imagine a lot of these other people like D.R. Horton that's advertising a 4.99 is also going to have potentially a 4.49%. And 10,000 in closing costs offer through Taylor Morrison. I've seen up to 25,000 for 2024. And caveat up here, the rates and incentives, all of these things are going to really vary depending on the home, the subdivision. So if a builder has a subdivision, for example, that's on the final phase and they're just finishing up and they've got some homes that are sitting for a longer period of time. In other words, if they have a greater incentive to move something, they're going to offer typically better incentives. If it's a brand new subdivision and homes are just now coming to the market, they might not have as many incentives. So real quick, I'm going to run you through what does the process look like if you're buying a new construction home. So now real quick, I want to run you through the process. What does the process look like if you're buying a new construction home? You need to get pre-approved just like you would on a resale. And again, some of these lenders are going to be in-house. Sometimes you're searching for the builder, sometimes you're searching for a particular community. Maybe it could be a combination of both. That's part of what we help you work through. You will sign a purchase agreement with that builder. Once you sign an agreement, then you will go through the design and customization process. And again, this is from the dirt up. If a house is already under construction, but not yet finished, it's not uncommon that you might be able to put your touch on some of these selections and choose some of your own selections. And then the construction process, I've got 4 to 12 months here. 4 is really lightning fast, but these days, if a builder is, like I said, towards the end of a phase and they're really rocking and rolling, it can be done. 12 months was more towards COVID. That was kind of on the longer end of things where we had delays and shortages and supply chain issues. I would say the average is probably closer to like 6 to 9 months. Now, some people think that because it's a new home, you don't need to inspect the home. The home will have to be inspected by the local municipality to pass their code inspections, but a buyer typically will also want to do their own inspection. But a buyer can also perform and should perform their own inspection. You can do that both pre-drywall, so that means that you've got all the framing up, the electrical, all the plumbing, basically all the guts of the house, but you don't have the walls up yet, which of course, once they go up, there's a lot of things you're not ever going to be able to see again. So if you really want an inspector to be able to take a look under the hood, you can do a pre-drywall inspection. A lot of people don't do that. Probably most people don't do that. It's good not only for your own knowledge, but it's also good when you go to resell the house. It's information that could potentially help out the buyer. For sure, you will want to do a final inspection once the house is completed. As any home inspector will probably tell you, no house is perfect. Even a brand new house, home inspectors always find at least a couple of things. They typically pay for themselves. In my view, they're typically going to find enough things to ask the builder to correct that the fee that they charge is usually going to be worth it. So at least one inspection, potentially 2, and then sometimes you do a final inspection before the end of that first year warranty is up, like around the 11-month mark. You could have a home inspector come back out and make sure that there's something maybe that they could uncover that you didn't see that would be covered under warranty. The pre-closing and final walkthrough, once the house is completed, you'll do a walkthrough with the builder to make sure everything looks good. You actually go through with some blue tape and mark anything in the house that sort of looks like it has an imperfection, and the builder will fix those things with you. Then you'll go through closing, underwriting, all that stuff usually takes about a week, and then you will move into your new house. Okay, so I hope all of that information was helpful. If you are thinking about buying a home or even touring a home, like I said, you have questions about these buyer's agent agreements, I'm a licensed broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. I invite you to call, text, email. You can find all the contact information in the description of this video. If you want to hit that QR code, it'll take you to our website where you can find even more information about us and even more videos. And if you want to see more videos like this, showing you about what it's like to live in Oregon and Southwest Washington, make sure and subscribe. And until next time, take care, everyone.